Well, hello and a very good evening to all of you. I welcome my students from 12D and 12F and also my viewers on YouTube. I'm back again with all of you, uh, an English teacher from AMU called Akhlaq Ahmed. Now, you see, recently by some mistake or maybe, I'm not sure, but somehow two items that were earlier deleted from our course have now been included in the course. So I'll provide you material on both of them. One of them is a roadside stand, and the other is called Memories from Childhood from Vistas. In today's session, we will focus on a roadside stand. And later on, of course, I'll be coming up with another video on memories of childhood. This will cover a complete explanation, summary, overview, and the question and answers uh, of the poem. So this poem, entitled The Roadside Stand, is by Robert Frost, who is a very famous American poet. And one of the important features of his poetry is that in his poems, we usually find uh, two opposite points of view present. The reader is allowed to take any one of them or reconcile them. You know, the 2 points of view are mostly there. We'll see the same in our poem at the end of the poem. And um, you see, the poem basically deals with the idea that the economic well-being of a country depends upon a balanced development of the villages and cities. Now, villages also include the outskirts of the city, suburban areas, which are very much like villages, having no basic facilities like hospitals, schools, banking, etc. So the idea is that a country really develops or prospers not when the rich become richer, but when the poor become richer and the poverty is eliminated. So now a roadside stand is often an open air structure, usually at the roadside, and it is meant for a small retail business. Sometimes we call it a dhaba as well, but then a dhaba usually sells food, prepared food. A roadside stand may sell other smaller items also of daily use. So we'll read the poem then. The little old house was out with a little new shed in front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. So the little old house refers to a roadside stand which spread in front at the edge of the road, maybe covering a bit of the road as well. And on the road, the traffic sped, moved quickly. Sped is from speed. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled, it would not be fair to say for a dole of for a dole of bread, but for some money, the cash whose flow supports the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint. So what the people at the roadside stand seem to be doing? The poet observes that they seem to be pleading, requesting in a very pathetic manner, pathetically the manner that arouses pity in us. And the poet says that they were not requesting for alms, A-L-M-S. Dole means alms. They were not begging for bread. Rather, they were asking for some of the money. That is, they were selling something and in return they wanted some money, the cash. And it is the basic economic principle that the flow of money actually supports the economy. It prevents the flower of the cities, it's used as a metaphor, the economic growth of the cities from sinking and withering faint, becoming faint. So the flow of the cash is a very important factor for the economic growth of any region or country. Now, how would the money flow? Well, it's the process of buying and selling. Now, what actually happens is that people usually buy things from big stores, malls, shopping centers, but such smaller businesses like the roadside stand are very often ignored, so they do not prosper. Somehow, uh, the flow of money is blocked. होता ये है कि जो लोग हैं वो अमूमन बड़े लोगों से शॉपिंग करते हैं तो पैसा जो है वो रिच I mean it keeps flowing amongst the rich rather than going to the poor. Okay, now let's read on. The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or if ever aside a moment, then out of sorts at having the landscape marred with the artless paint. So, the traffic, the polished traffic, the refined people, the rich people kept passing by with determination, with a mind ahead. They never wanted to stop there. And if at all they stopped there for a moment, then what they did, they went out of sorts. That is, they got rather angry and complained. Complained of what? That the landscape, the beauty of the place was marred, spoiled by the artless paint. The paint, the paint that painting that was done on the roadside stand. There were signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong. So kept the letters like N or S were painted there and that were not properly painted. So those people would complain that uh, these people have in fact spoiled the beauty of the place. Now, what the roadside stand did, offered for sale wild berries in wooden quarts. Quarts are bottles or containers um, having the capacity of holding a quart, which is the quarter of a gallon, made of wood. Here, they have also glossed the meaning of this word. So it was selling what? Wild berries. It's a wild fruit growing on wild bushes in wooden quarts or crook-necked golden squash with silver wall. Well, squash is a vegetable. You call it a gourd or pumpkin. It usually has a crooked neck, and it's golden in color and has got silver, rather silvery wards, lumps. यानी लौकी या काशी फल जो होता है ये बेंट होता है, इसकी नेक थोड़ी सी बेंट होती है और इस पे सिल्वर कलर के लम्प्स से बने होते हैं, मसे से बने होते हैं. So this is what they were selling. So they were not begging for bread, they were selling something, they wanted money in return, but the people instead of buying them complained of the beauty of the landscape being marred or spoiled by the artless paint, clumsy paint that they had done on the roadside stand. Okay, the poet says, or beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene. You have the money, but if you want to be mean, why? Keep your money this crossly and go along. He says, look, if you want to enjoy beauty, then better look at a mountain scene. Better look at a painting of a mountain in which you would find beauty, or go to some mountainous area where you will find beauty of nature. Beauty of nature uh, cannot be found on the outskirts of a city. Here you have hard reality. where people are busy earning their bread. He says that these people have the money, but actually they want to be mean. They want to be miser. They don't want to spend money here. So it's better for them that they keep their money in pocket and go away. Rather, this crossly means this rather angrily. The poet says that they should go away rather than complaining about the beauty of the landscape being marred. They should not use it as as an excuse to ignore the roadside stand. He says, the hurt to the scenery wouldn't be my complaint. He says, I'm not. He says he's not going to complain about the damage done to the beauty of the landscape. Let's see. So much as the trusting sorrow of what is unsaid. He says that he would not complain about the beauty being spoiled, but he would complain about the sorrow that these people are experiencing because their trust has been betrayed and not much has been said about it. So he'll complain about this. यानी बजाय यानी लैंडस्केप की ब्यूटी के बारे में कोई कंप्लेन करने के, पोइट किस बारे में कंप्लेन करना चाह रहा है? जो दर्द और दुख इन्हें सहना पड़ रहा है, किस वजह से? इस वजह से कि उन्होंने दूसरों पे भरोसा किया और फिर वो भरोसा पूरा नहीं हुआ, लेकिन इसके बारे में कुछ नहीं कहा जाता. you know Nothing has been said about it. The people say, they speak of the beauty of the landscape being gone. Nobody ever speaks about how these poor people have been betrayed, how promises have been made to them, and the promises have not been kept. बड़े बड़े वादे किए जाते हैं. सोशल एजेंसीज हों, सोशल वेलफेयर एजेंसीज या पॉलिटिकल क्लासेस, जो भी हों, इनसे वादे होते हैं और फिर वो promises are broken. And no one ever talks about that, complains about that. The poet says that he complains about that. Now, what the people running roadside stand want here, far from city, we make our roadside stand and ask for some money, for some city money to feel in hand, uh, to try if it will not make our lives, our beings expand and give us the life of the moving pictures promise. Moving pictures here means motion pictures that we usually watch in the cinema halls. So these people, in fact, say that here, far from the city, they have not disturbed the city people. They are far from the city. They have erected a roadside stand, and they want to earn a bit of a money. And try to expand their beings means try to have some kind of financial well-being. And they are trying to see if it would give them the life of what? Of motion pictures promise. In fact, in the movies, it is often shown that, there is a poor man, he works hard, he runs a roadside stand, becomes very rich, and then, lives happily. ऐसे ही हमारे movies में दिखाया जाता है कि किस तरह से गरीब है आदमी, मेहनत करता है, फिर उसके बाद तरक्की कर जाता है. So these people also believe or think or want that they too should develop like that. The motion, they should achieve motion pictures promise. But the problem is, this promise, the poet says, that the party in power is said to be keeping from us. This promise is kept away from them. And the opposition blames the ruling party, that the ruling party is in fact keeping this promise away from the poor people. And this is the usual pattern in all democratic countries. देखिए क्या होता है कि एक रूलिंग पार्टी है, वो पावर में है, तो ऑपोजिशन कहती है कि भाई ये गरीबों के बारे में कुछ नहीं करना चाहते, तभी कुछ लोगों के बारे में कुछ नहीं करना चाहते. वो प्रॉमिस जो मोशन पिक्चर्स में दिखाया जाता है, उस तरह का इनका कोई डेवलपमेंट नहीं होना है. But irony is that when the same party comes to the power next time, तो अब जो दूसरी अपोजिशन है वो भी उस पर यही इल्जाम लगाती है. So the political forces keep accusing each other of not doing anything for the poor people. And here these poor people are trying to, you see, earn a bit of a livelihood for themselves. And the rich ones, instead of helping them by buying, they in fact complain of the beauty being marred and go away. Now see, it is in the news. See how these people are cheated. It is in the news that all these pitiful kin are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in to live in villages next to the theater and the stores, where they won't have to think for themselves anymore. Now, the news is often, you see, the leaders come up with various policies, and they say that these roadside stands will now be bought. The government will purchase this land and they will be paid for it. Pitiful kin, that is poor. Kin actually means relatives, but here it means the community of the poor people. So these poor people, their land would be bought and they would be mercifully, it would be an act of mercy from the government and the rich people that they would be gathered into the villages and there they would be settled. And they would get a chance to live next to the theater and the store. So they would live next to the theater and the big stores, and where they won't have to worry about themselves anymore because they would get enough chance to earn and, live happily. But this is in fact a joke. देखिए, इनको पहली बात तो कहाँ बसाया जाएगा? विलेजेस में, थिएटर और स्टोर के पास. तो जब ये थिएटर और स्टोर के पास होंगे तो ये परचेजिंग और डीलिंग कहाँ से करेंगे? बड़े बड़े स्टोर्स से, थिएटर्स से. तो फायदा किसका होगा? It will ultimately benefit the rich people. And nobody will come to the roadside stand. If you have a big store, why would you go to a roadside stand? So it will destroy even the smaller business that they have, and it will benefit the rich people. अब देखिए, the poet becomes very bitter here. He says, while the greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey, swarm over their lives, enforcing benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits. And by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day and destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way. Let's understand. So these rich people, policymakers, they are called greedy good doers. Greedy, lalchi. They're actually greedy of money, and they pretend to do good to the poor. ये सिर्फ दिखावा करते हैं कि ये गरीबों के लिए कुछ कर रहे हैं. एक्चुअली इनका मकसद क्या होता है? खुद अपनी ही तिजोरियां भरना, to fill their own coffers. They are called beneficent beasts of prey. Beasts of prey, as you know, meat-eating animals. And at the same time, the poet uses the word beneficent kind. How can a beast, how can a beast of prey be kind? So they are like beneficent beasts of prey who pretend that they are doing good, and actually they harm the poor people and benefit themselves. And by doing this, they swarm over their lives. That is, to swarm is to crowd, to assemble together. Ye to literal meaning hai. But here it means they overshadow the lives of the poor. By enforcing or implementing benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits. To soothe them out of their wits, to cheat them. Okay, try to understand it. You see, it's a bit difficult, but you can understand. Calculated. These benefits are well calculated, well planned. Their actual aim is not to comfort the poor people. but they have been planned in such a way that seemingly uh, they appear to be good for the poor, but actually they help the rich. यानी इनको इस तरह से प्लान किया जाता है कि देखने में तो ऐसा लगे कि इससे गरीबों को फायदा होगा, लेकिन एक्चुअल उससे अमीरों को ही फायदा हो. अब फॉर एग्जांपल मैं किसी I'm not trying to make any political comment, but there are various schemes, Chandhan Yojana, ये वो सब वगैरह वगैरह, but you see the price rise, the rising poverty, everything. अब वो कहते हैं it's God's doing. कोरोना आ गया तो पावर्टी हो गई. नो, क्या इससे पहले पावर्टी नहीं थी? So these rich people are in fact exploiting the poor. And the poet says that they teach them how to sleep. That is, how to be comfortable. They teach them how to sleep. And by doing so, they sleep all day and destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way. ये इनसे एक तरह से मैसेज देते हैं कि भाई आप लोग आराम से रहें, आराम से सोएं, कोई ज़्यादा परेशान होने की बात नहीं है. But by doing this, actually, they destroy their sleep at night. इनको उसका इफेक्ट क्या होता है? इफेक्ट ये होता है कि अमीर तो जो है वो दिन में भी सोता है, मगर गरीबों की रात की नींद उड़ जाती है. That's how they are exploited. So you see, and this has been done from time immemorial, the ancient way. ये हमेशा से होता आया है, ऐसे ही हो रहा है. Now we come to the next stanza. Sometimes I feel myself I can hardly bear the thought of so much childish longing in vain. So the poet says that he cannot tolerate, he can hardly bear, he can hardly tolerate the thought of a silly desire, strong desire that these poor people have. देखिए यहाँ पे फिर वो very ironical, bitter. He's not criticizing the poor, rather he is indirectly criticizing the rich. कैसे अभी देखते हैं? The sadness that lurks near the open window. So there is a sadness that lingers, that remains there at the open window. There is the open window and the person sitting there thinking that someone would come and buy something and that they would earn some money. So what the person that does, that waits all day in almost open prayer. So almost openly is praying to God that someone should come and buy. For what? For the squeal of brakes, the sound of a stopping car. So he wants to hear, squeal is a high-pitched, loud, high-pitched sound. Brake, when you apply the brakes to the car, जैसे कार में ब्रेक लगाते हैं तो एक आवाज निकलती है. So he wants to hear that sound and wants to see a car stopping there and someone coming out and buying something. लेकिन होता क्या है? Of all the 1,000 selfish cars that pass, just one to inquire what a farmer's prices are. So thousands of cars pass there. And these cars are called selfish. In fact, the cars are not selfish, the car owners are selfish. Maybe just one stops there, but for what purpose? To inquire what a farmer's prices are. लोग आते हैं और पूछते हैं कि भाई ये चीज कितने की दे रहे हो, और पूछ के चले जाते हैं. And one did stop, but only to plow up the grass, in using the yard to back and turn around. So another car stops there, but for what purpose? In order to plow up the grass and turn around. मतलब वहाँ पे रुकते हैं इसलिए कि ताकि वो turn ले लें, मुड़ जाए. This plow, P-L-O-W, plow, is the American spelling of the word P-L-O-U-G-H, which means to turn up, to turn over, to tear up. तो ये कार अगर रुकती भी है तो इसलिए कि ब्रेक करके टर्न हो जाए, क्योंकि अगर टर्न करना होता है तो कार बैक करते हैं पीछे थोड़ा सा और फिर उसके बाद टर्न होते हैं. and another to ask where the way where to where it was bound. So another car stops there, and the person comes out and asks the person where the way leads to. लोग रास्ता भूल जाते हैं, उतरते हैं, भाई पूछते हैं कि भाई ये रास्ता कहाँ जा रहा है, हाईवे पे जा रहा है कि नहीं जा रहा है, इस मकसद के लिए. And another to ask, could they sell it a gallon of gas? So another one stops there. They are short of fuel, so they ask if they could sell them a gallon of gas, that is gasoline, which is used as fuel or petrol. तो उन्हें पता है वो वहां नहीं मिलेगा, फिर भी. So they couldn't. This crossly, they had none. Didn't it see? So it was quite obvious that they were not selling gasoline or fuel, but still people come and ask for it, in a way, maybe making fun of the poor people. So now we can understand the childish longing, silly desire. Poor people, they always keep desiring that someone will come and buy, but it never happens. People do stop, but for different purposes, and go away. They are so hard-hearted. They don't want to buy anything from small places. They would rather go to a big mall or a huge showroom and so on. So, that is why this childish longing. So, ये childish longing जो है, it's not the criticism of the poor, it's a comment on the rich. Now the poet says clearly, no, in country money, the country scale of gain, the requisite lift of the spirit has not been found. Or so the voice of the country seems to complain. So country money here implies the economic policies of the country. And the country's scale of gain means the statistics of economic progress. Requisite means required, that which is necessary. Lift of the spirit refers to the economic growth of the poor people. And the voice of the country means the voice of the poor people. Now let's understand the whole meaning. The poet says that as far as our economic policies are concerned, as far as the statistics of the economic growth are concerned, the necessary development of the poor people has not been achieved. Or at least this is the complaint of the poor people. Now we are coming close to the conclusion. The poet says, I can't help owning the great relief it would be to put these people at one stroke out of their pain. Ab dekhiye, the poet says, in one sense he says that it would give him great relief to end the misery of these poor people with one attempt. ठीक है, यानी कि उससे बड़ा सुकून मिलेगा अगर सिर्फ एक अटेम्प्ट में इनकी परेशानी को खत्म कर दिया जाए. First of all, this shows that the poet feels great pain and suffering at the plight of the poor. तभी तो उसे रिलीफ मिलेगा. भाई हम रिलीफ कब चाहते हैं? जब हम सफर कर रहे हो, जब हमें कोई प्रॉब्लम हो. अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है तो रिलीफ की बात ही नहीं करेंगे. Now the poet wants relief, and he wants relief because he feels pain. He suffers at the thought of the suffering of the poor. अब ये poor की suffering कैसे खत्म होगी? But the poet wants that their suffering should be ended immediately with one stroke. Now this may have two meanings. You see, जैसे मैंने आपको शुरू में बताया था कि फ्रॉस्ट की पोएम्स में दो कॉन्ट्ररी पॉइंट्स ऑफ व्यू होते हैं. तो यहाँ पे एक मीनिंग तो ये है कि if these rulers, social agencies, if all of us cannot end their suffering, then it is better to kill all the poor people and let them die. Because such a death is much better than the life of this misery. इस तरह की पेनफुल लाइफ में आदमी रोज हर लम्हे मरता है, उससे तो एक बार मर जाना बेहतर है, इनकी परेशानी तो खत्म हो जाएगी. Now this is one meaning. The other meaning is that some revolutionary, strong, single action should be taken which should put an end to the misery of these poor people. And both these meanings apply. आप जो भी मीनिंग इसमें लेना चाहें ले सकते हैं. Now, let's see. And then next day, as I come back into the scene, I wonder how I should like you to come to me and offer to put me gently out of my pain. So, after their misery is removed, the poet would come back to his sane, that is, to his senses. एक तरह से, the poet has almost gone mad after seeing the misery of the poor people. तो ये इनकी परेशानी को, मिजरी को देख के उस पे एक पागलपन सा तारी हो गया, And once their misery is removed, either by killing them or by helping them actually, किसी भी तरह से हो वो, once their misery is removed, he would come back to his senses, and then what would he want? He would want the poor people to come to them, to come to the poet, and to offer to put him gently out of pain whenever he needs their help. यानी अब वो ये चाहता है कि इनका इतना इम्प्रूवमेंट हो जाए कि जब उसे मदद की ज़रूरत हो तो वो poor people उसकी हेल्प कर सके. So the poet wants that their misery should be ended with one stroke, with one single action, revolutionary action that should end their poverty and misery. And when the poet is able to overcome his suffering at the thought of the plight of the poor people, when the poet is able to overcome that suffering, he would like to see these people becoming happy and rich. In fact, so capable that whenever the poet needs help, they should offer to help him out of his pain. And here, when I say the poet, I mean the speaker. यहाँ poet से मतलब poet ही नहीं है, but anyone. That is, they should be able to help anyone who is in misery. अभी position क्या है? At present, they need help, but he wants them to be in a position to live not just a happy life, but to be capable of helping others as well. So this is our poem. Now we'll quickly run through the questions. Question number 1. The city folk who drove through the countryside hardly paid any heed to the roadside stand or to the people who ran it. If at all they did, it was to complain. Now, which lines bring this out, and what was their complaint? As far as lines are concerned, I'll point out. You see, it's here. The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or rather from this line, or if ever aside a moment, then out of sorts at having the landscape marked with artless paint of signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong. So these are the lines which indicate that they are complaining. And what is their complaint? They complain that these these people who run roadside stand have in fact spoiled the beauty of the landscape by painting clumsily on the roadside stand. What was the plea of the folk who had put up the roadside stand? So the people who had put up the roadside stand, their plea was, they were pleading for what? For some livelihood. They wanted to earn money. They wanted that the money they should flow, and so the development should take place. Now, the government and the other social agencies appear to help the poor rural people, but actually do them no good. Now, pick out the words and phrases that the poet used to show their double standards. तो ये जैसा कि मैंने आपको अभी बताया, phrases like greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey, swarm over their lives, enforcing benefits calculated to suit them out of their wits, or teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day and destroy their sleeping at night. ये जितने भी phrases हैं, this whole stanza in fact shows the double standard of the rich people. Next, what is the childish longing that the poet refers to? This childish longing is the longing, the strong desire of the people running roadside stand, that someone would come and buy their things and they would be able to earn money. Why is it vain? Why is it useless? It's useless because the rich people who pass by, they are cruel, heartless, they don't actually want to help the poor. Helping the poor is another thing. They just don't even want to buy a thing from the poor people. चले आप उनको financially help नहीं कर सकते तो कोई बात नहीं, कम से कम उनसे चीजें खरीद तो लें ताकि उनके पास कुछ पैसा जाए. That too the rich people do not want. Which lines tell us about the insufferable pain that the poet feels at the thought of the plight of the rural poor? So plight means misery. ये जैसा मैंने आपको बताया यहाँ पे, I can't help owning the great relief it would be to put these people at one stroke out of their pain. These lines show the great misery, the great pain and suffering, the insufferable pain that the poet feels. Why? Because he wants relief. And why he wants relief? Because he is undergoing severe suffering at the thought of poor people, remaining poor. उसे रिलीफ चाहिए, उसे बहुत सुकून मिलेगा. सुकून क्यों मिलेगा? क्योंकि वो ऑलरेडी बहुत परेशान है. He is almost mad by thinking about, by indulging in the thoughts, or by analyzing the situation, or the circumstances that poor people are in. तो जब भी वो गरीबों की तरफ देखता है तो उसे बहुत ज़्यादा दुख होता है. इसीलिए वो कहता है कि उसे बहुत रिलीफ मिलेगा अगर इनकी मिजरी को ख़त्म कर दिया जाए, चाहे इन सबको मार के या फिर इनके लिए कुछ ऐसा किया जाए जिससे कि उनकी मिजरी ख़त्म हो जाए. So you see, this is the whole poem, and we have also discussed the questions, and you see, I hope the whole point is clear to you. Now, if you still have any problems or queries, you're most welcome. You can come on your WhatsApp group and ask, and the viewers on YouTube. I'm not so sure if I have. I would soon add my WhatsApp number there, so the viewers on YouTube too can ask questions on WhatsApp. And for the time being, they can ask questions. I mean, you can ask questions by commenting on the video, and in your comments you can ask questions if you need any more help, and then I would come up with some other video. So and the students, that 12D and 12F, you need not ask your questions in the comment section. You better ask your questions on your WhatsApp groups, and I hope I would satisfy you. So this is nearly all for today. Whenever we meet next, we would try to cover the memories of childhood, which is the last item in our course. So until we meet again, take care, and good luck to all of you. Thank you very much.